Hey, thanks for watching. I'm here to give you a quick and easy tutorial on setting up a Minecraft server, and that includes port forwarding and even using a domain name that you own as the server address. That's kind of optional, but it's cool to do. First, we're going to set up our server on our machine. I highly recommend using a paper server over the vanilla Minecraft jar. You'll generally see better performance, and it allows you to use plugins. Go ahead and download the paper server jar here. I've already downloaded mine right here. And I have this this folder over here that we'll use to set up our server. Just go ahead and move that over there. Just to make it easier, I'm just going to replace this with paper server. It'll make it a little bit easier later. Now we have our server jar downloaded. This contains all of the files needed for the server, but we can't just run it as it is. We'll need to create a start script. In order to do that, go ahead and right-click, New Text Document, and then rename this to start.bat, and this is a batch file. If you don't see these extensions on the end, you can go over to View and click this box, File Name Extensions. Make sure that that's there. That just makes it easier to change file types. Now we just need to create our start.bat file. I'm just going to drag it over to my text editor. I'm going to enter this. This is a Java file, so we're running it in Java. And with the argument of XMX6G. This argument says run the server using 6 GB of RAM. You can figure out how much you're able to allocate on your own. This is a jar, and the jar's name is paperserver.jar, and then we want to run this with no GUI. GUI. And go ahead and save that and run it. When you run it, it'll download the Mojang jar to get all of the files and then make all of its changes. You can just go ahead and wait for it to finish loading. Now that it's done, failed to load EULA.txt. That's normal. You'll need to open up this EULA and change this to true. Save that, and then you can restart. At this point, your server is running on your local network. However, it won't be accessible from other networks. For that, we need to create a port forwarding rule. First, to get some information, we'll need to open up command prompt and just type cmd and type in ipconfig. Now go ahead and copy your default gateway there and put it into your browser of choice. You'll need to log into your router's interface. If you've never done this, the login info is probably still set to the default. Often, that info is printed on the label on your router, but if it's not, you can look up the model of your router on the internet, and you can find the default login info pretty easily. Once you're in, locate the port forwarding page. Mine is in WAN and port forwarding. The location varies, so you might need to look around for it a little while. But once you're there, add a rule with these settings. Service name can be whatever you want. External port should be 25565, which is the default. And then your internal IP address should be set to your IP address in your IP config. Go ahead and set the protocol to both, and you are done. Once this port forwarding rule is done, you are port forwarded, but only for this specific internal IP address. However, your local IP doesn't always stay the same. In order to make sure it doesn't change, we can set up a static IP using the one that's already assigned to our machine. In order to do this, we can right-click our network down here, open Network in Internet Settings, go over to Ethernet or whatever adapter that you're using, go to Change Adapter Options, find the one that you're using, go to Properties, IPv4, click that, go to Properties, and then we enter all of these addresses into this box. So IP address, use the one that's assigned, subnet mask, use what's assigned, and surprise, surprise, default gateway, use what's assigned. The DNS server can be whatever DNS server you want to use. I prefer to use Google's, which is just 8s at the top and then 8844 on the bottom. Now, the last thing that we need to do is go and get our public IP address. You can do this really easily just by Googling what is my IP, and it'll tell you right here what your public IP address is. This one obviously is not my real IP address. And your friends can now join using this server address. Congrats! Now, this next part is optional, but cool to do if you want an easy to remember server address. You can use a domain name that you own as your server address. First, you need to buy a domain. I use Squarespace, but you can use whatever service you want. This is my totally real domain that I own and want to use as my server address. And in order to use it as a server address, we'll need to set up an A record. In Squarespace, you can go to Domains, DNS, and DNS settings in order to do this. I'm not sure how to do it on other services, but it should be pretty similar. These are the settings that you should use if you want to use the domain that you own as the server address. The host should be the @ symbol, the type is an A record, and the IP address should be set to your public IP address that we found earlier. If you use your domain for a website already, you can change the host for your record, use a prefix like mc.fakedomain.net, and maintain all of the other settings. DNS settings can take a little while to go live. This TTL does make a difference, but sometimes when you initially set it up, it can take up to a day. So if the domain name doesn't work initially, give it a day to catch up before doing any additional troubleshooting. And that was the tutorial, guys. I hope you guys didn't find it too difficult, and I hope you have a great time with your friends on your brand new server.